What?
We good? We on? All right. Hey, I'm John Myers, and this is the local law enforcement hour. My cohort that's usually on here with me, he had I think he bummed up his leg or something. I was talking to him earlier. He's been hobbling around in a cast for a few days or a few weeks, and I think he's got some. I don't know what happened, but anyway, he's on the DL. He said he had to elevate his leg for a few hours to get everything back in shape. But this is we're coming up on one of my favorite days of the year, Veterans Day. It's where our great country honors those that served, and I'm fortunate enough to be sitting here with y'all. People that know me know that that I consider the older military guys is like not a they're heroes, I guess is the word I'm looking for. I come from a military family. My dad was drafted in Korea back in the 50s, and I've got a brother and a sister that both served. I got tons of aunts and uncles and nieces and nephews. The Myers family have traditionally went in the military. I went in right after high school, and so it's a special day for me, Veterans Day, and are y'all going to be in the parade Tuesday? I think you're usually there, aren't you, Bill?
Honor Guard.
Yeah, that's right. You're the honor guard. So
I haven't heard anything about a parade.
Tuesday,
Special dinner engagement.
right?
Friday.
Yeah. So yeah, and then we have the lunch tomorrow. At 1819, so we'll get to see each other again.
Yeah.
But I'm here with Mr. Oliver Norton, right? And Bill Patterson. Bill's a United States Marine, and Mr. Norton went into the United States Army.
Yeah.
Back during the Korea. Now, we were talking before we got started a little bit, and you were talking about when you left and got stationed, and you said you was in Munich, Germany, right?
Yeah.
So and now does my brother was in the Army, and I can't remember where he did his basic. Is there more than one base where like in the Marine Corps, we have our Parris Island, which everybody east of the Mississippi goes to Parris Island. Everybody west of Mississippi goes to California, to what is it, Pendleton, out that way. Is it the same with the Army?
Yeah. I was in the 11th Airborne Division, and that was in 1955. And at that time, the other parachute divisions of the Army was the 101st Airborne and the 82nd Airborne. Mm-hmm. And those two were stationed elsewhere in the United States. I think Marines was in someplace out here on the East Coast, and the 82nd was too.
I got you.
But those two other airborne infantry divisions were here at the time that I joined the 11th Airborne Division, and that was in 1955. And
now we were talking earlier that this was still during the Korean conflict, right?
Yeah, it was right at the time, my time at that time. They were in a ceasefire agreement, and they were working on that. So, but there was still a draft being enacted to get men in for the Army, and I volunteered for the draft to get in to try to get some choice of assignment, and that's what they were told.
Yeah. Because you knew if you waited around and you got drafted, you was probably going to be combat infantry or a cook, right?
Yeah. If I got drafted, I'd have gone whatever they said to do.
Exactly.
And I would that would have scheduled me for at least the tail end part of Korea. Mm-hmm. Although the ceasefire had been agreed on about then, but. I had a desire to go to the airborne, and they were asking for volunteers to fill up the division, bring the division up to full strength, so they could transport the whole division to Europe. And we relieved a lot of the Army over there. And we were stationed, I was stationed in Munich, Germany, and parts of the other airborne area were stationed at different cities where they had the facilities to house a group of men. Augsburg was another one, and Stuttgart, and I think there was a few more others there. But we were scattered out over the whole part of Germany, and that we transported over on a ship in January of 1956.
Now, how many airplanes did you jump out of?
Well, at the time, now the C-46 was used in World War II and Korea and that. But during the Korean War, they designed and built a C-119 flying boxcar. And that's what they were using for primary transport then. So when I went in, that was the popular aircraft for parachutists. And at Fort Campbell, that's where we had a wing that was stationed up near there. And that's the ones that did all the flying for us up there when we were training at Fort Campbell. But the same wing went to Germany with us, and they were stationed at another part of Munich. But they was the flying boxcar is what it is.
I got you.
And they phased, started back in 57, late 57 or late 1958. They started phasing out the C-119s as troop transport, and they started going to some of the more newer models like the C-130 and other ones like that, where they would carry-on load was quite a bit more than C-119s, and just better handling aircraft at the time. C-119s was a reliable aircraft, though. I don't recall any terrible facilities that they had with the C-119, so it was a good aircraft. And every time I flew on one, I flew it. I mean, I jumped it.
Yeah.
I got to where I was going, they jump zone and jumped. At one particular time, we were on a jump flight, what they call. Once a month, you have to make a jump to receive your pay as parachutist. So we were on a regular jump that day, and it was windy that morning, and it kind of subsided a little bit, and they said, okay, we think we can go. Well, we took off, and by the time we got back around to the drop zone, the wind had gotten picked up so bad that they wouldn't let us jump then. So we went back to the airport and landed in a C-119, and that's the first time I landed in one. I always jumped out of one before that.
I
landed
see
one.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's the first time you ever left and came back in the aircraft.
I'm glad that's the first time I only had to land with it, and I was glad that was the last time I landed with it.
You're right. Yeah.
Getting down got a little bumpier and a little more, I won't say hazardous, but got you nervous when landing.
Yeah.
But anyway,
me and Bill was talking when I first got here, and you was talking a little bit about how you was deployed in support of the Cuban. What was that called? Was that the
Cuban Missile Crisis?
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
62.
Talk to us a little bit.
1962.
What led up to that?
Well, President Kennedy was the president, and he was fighting with China for all that time, and they was moving missiles and to Cuba to set up against us. And he tried to get them to stop, and they didn't want to stop. But finally, I had just gotten off sea duty after 2 years on a Navy cruiser, and I was in the 2nd Marine Division, I Company. And overnight, we got shipped out on a troop transport to Cuba. So we got down there and stayed on the ship for almost 5 weeks.
Just parked off the beach.
Just parked off the beach, wallering around. And of course, you don't know anything about a troop transport, but they're flat bottom and they waller like nobody's business.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's seasick. And it was a miserable month that we spent there.
Yeah.
And they eventually, the Navy, put the landing boats off the ship and warming them up and trying them out. And they even throwed the rope ladders over the ship, and then just in a matter of a few minutes, Kennedy got it stopped. And China agreed to turn their ships around and go back to China.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962.
Wasn't there a CIA operation in South America that was either right there around that time, which kind of kick-started that whole thing?
So it seemed like I remember something about that, but I'm not familiar with it.
Hey, I'm not up to speed on a lot of my history. It's been too long since I had a history class. But so you came back. You was telling us a little bit in there about when you got back. You parked at Jackson Beach.
Well, I don't know how many thousand sailors was there, and the whole 2nd Marine Division, and they come into Jacksonville Beach, of all places, to let everybody get off and have some fun. Well, they let 2 ships or 3 ships off today and 2 or 3 off tomorrow. Well, the day that my division or detachment got off, my first lieutenant and myself got MP duty. So we had to go ashore and try to keep
the peace.
Try to keep the peace. Well, it was absolutely impossible.
Yeah.
Because they had been tied up aboard that ship, sleeping 4 stacked high, so you couldn't even turn over in the bunk. You just slammed in there. Seasick, the smell was awful.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a wild thing. And after about 2 hours, the lieutenant called to me and he said, "Pat," well, my name in the military was Pat, not Bill, not William, but Pat. And he said, "Pat, what are we going to do?" And I just reached over and pulled my armband off and give him my nightstick. And I said, "I'm going back to the ship." He said, "I'm going with you."
So it was like a mob. All those guys been cooped up on that ship for 5 weeks,
Mob.
and they finally got turned loose to have some free time ashore, and they made good on it.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
You can't blame them.
and that day, there was about 6 or 7 ships altogether. So they let 2 of them go a day, and then.
That's still how many? I mean, that's got to be over
Well,
a
the
couple
ship,
thousand, right?
I don't know how many, what the number was on that troop transport, but it was way up there.
Yeah. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Mike Reisner. He passed away back in January. He was an Army Green Beret, really good friend of mine. And he had just story after story after story of the things. You know, he was in Vietnam, and just listening to some of the things that he would talk about is just. If you didn't know Mike, you would swear that there was no bit of truth to him, that he made him up. But I mean, just knowing Mike, you knew everything he was saying was true. But my dad used to tell a story. Like I said, he was stationed. He was in Germany for a while. He was in Korea. And then he wasn't there very long. And then they sent him. And it might have been sometime around what you was talking about, Mr. Norton, where the peace agreement had came through. But he used to tell a story. He was on a recoilless rifle.
Yeah.
The shoulder fired bazooka, I guess is best word. And they would sit in a foxhole, and they would set up that recoilless rifle, and they would sit for days, you know, and they would get one hot meal every other day, and the rest of the time they were eating out of their kit. You know, we were talking about the C rations earlier.
Yeah.
What we had when I was in the Marine Corps was probably 10 years old. And you know, the date on those things, I mean, they don't ever go bad, do they?
Well,
Yeah.
the ones that we got, and that was in the early 60s, were World War II.
So they were 20 years old.
Yeah, they were World War II C rations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember the absolute worst one that you could get, because it was luck of the draw when you get your now they call them MRE, meal ready to eat. It was luck of the draw what you would get, but the absolute worst one that you could get was the chicken a la king. If you got stuck with the chicken a la king, you couldn't trade that for nothing. You had some trade material if you got beef stew or some ham and noodles or something, but if you got stuck with that chicken a la king, you couldn't trade that for nothing. You had to eat it. But yeah, we got some not long ago, and they're a lot now. They've got little heaters. They got little heater packs in there that you can heat them up. And I can remember thinking, well, if I could heat this up, it might not be so bad.
Yeah.
But we never had an option to heat it up. You know, we still had the canteen cups that you could heat your food up in.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So when you come back from, so you was in Germany for how long, Mr. Norton?
Till 1958.
58.
Basically, my 3 years of service was there.
Mm-hmm.
I went in 55 of May, and in January of 1956 is when we went to Germany. So I had 56, 57, and about half of 58 over there.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time I was scheduled for discharge, they activated our battalion, and we vacated the barracks. I don't say we because I was getting ready to ship out and come home, so they said, "No, Norton, you're not going with us. You're gonna go home." So they emptied out the barracks that we were in, and they shipped them someplace. And from there, they went transferred wherever, I'm not sure, but I think it was the very first units that they sent to Vietnam. And then a lot of the units they sent then was under the training phases, training of them. So that's where the 503rd that I was with went. And after that, I lost track of them. So I don't know. I know they did spend time in Vietnam and that. Mm-hmm. But it was, one thing about Germany when I was there is, and you don't hear that much about it, but the Cold War. And people say, oh, yeah, the Cold War. Well, the Cold War was a Cold War, but it got pretty hot over there. I don't mean we were getting into gun battles and shooting or anything, but tensions were really high for the years that we were over there. And once a month, you could count on like clockwork, and sometimes even in between, they would call a red alert. And at that time, they would activate all the different units there. And we would leave our barracks and go to the field to a specified point. Whenever Russia would get to moving tanks around and doing things, they'd call a red alert, and that's where we would go. They'd move us out to a tactical position, and you didn't know how long you was going to be there. There was some of them we stayed one day at a tactical position and went back to the barracks, and there was another time we stayed for a week and a half. So whenever you went out on a red alert, you didn't know how long you were going to be out there in the field.
Right.
And of course, at that time, they had to, bring in the set up mess kitchens and everything else out there, though. And it we had C rations in, and a lot of them were left over from World War II, and even some of the ones that was made prior to Korea, we got, and they were always in a metal can. There were no plastic pouches and stuff the way there was this.
Right.
And there was no way to heat them or anything. So normally when your battle group was out, when your battle group was out in the field for training, otherwise, they would have their mess kits and everything. The whole mess company was there. They'd have a 55-gallon drum, and they'd put what they called a Bunsen burner. It was a kerosene-fed heat pump light.
Yeah.
They'd put that in the water, and they'd heat that water, and then they'd put the metal cans in there with the C rations in, and when you were in a training and bivouac area, you were getting at least a halfway decent hot meal.
Yeah.
Most of the other times, though, the C rations were cold.
Yep.
And
tear the corner off for us. They come in those the packs, and you just tear the corner off, and you just get what you could get.
Yeah.
You know.
Those metal cans, we had no way of heating them. Guys tried different things, and one thing we did find out is that you could take a small portion of C4, a small portion of it, and put it on the bottom of the can and light it. And it would burn, and it would heat your can up. But if you had too much on there, it'd burn a hole in the can. It really hit your food up there.
Yeah, you had to have the exact amount.
That was about the only way we had to heating up our C rations, and otherwise they was nice cold C rations all the time.
Right.
But the one that we had, you was talking about the one that nobody wanted and hated. The one that I hated and a lot of the guys hated was sausage and I forget what else with the filler with it in there. But it was a horrible. You couldn't trade it. You couldn't sell it. You couldn't do nothing with it. Man.
You had to eat it or go hungry.
Either hate it and say, "Oh man," upset stomach and that. But,
Right.
Anyway, our basic C rations was left over from World War II and then prior to Korea and that.
Bill, did you ever get in trouble? Did you ever get arrested while you was in the Marines?
Well, fortunately, no.
Did you ever get put on restricted duty or any of that?
I never did that either.
Never. I got put on restricted duty when I was on Camp Lejeune, and the enlisted club on Camp Lejeune was right down the road from the barracks. So we would go there in the evenings and hang out and shoot pool, and there was a fight that broke out, and me and the guy I was there with, Corporal, his last name was Kadomsky, Corporal Kadomsky. Me and him was there shooting pool, wasn't even involved in the fight. But when the fight broke out, we didn't know where, we had nowhere to go. And I tell this story, we were trying to get out of there because we knew the MPs would be there in a heartbeat. And we were trying to get out of there before they got there. And it was I don't know, there was probably 8-10 guys involved. I think it was some of the recon guys and maybe some of the Anglico guys or something, the real heavy duty lifters, and they were tied up, and there was pool sticks flying and breaking and beers getting knocked over, and I mean, next thing I know, the MPs come in there and they grabbed everybody.
Yeah.
And we were guilty by association. and so we had to clean the company headquarters for 30 days. Had to mow grass and weed eat and take out the garbage and dust and vacuum and every day when we would come in from the motor pool, that's what we had to do for a couple hours every evening.
Yeah.
And it was so we was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
That's right. What's probably your most fond? What's your when you go back to your days in the Marine Corps, Bill? What memory kind of stands out?
Well, of course, I was in a peacetime Marine. I didn't have no war stories to tell. But I served 2 years on a U.S. Navy guided missile cruiser on sea duty.
What was the boat? What was it?
USS Little Rock.
USS
It was one
Little
of the
Rock.
first missile cruisers that the Navy had. And when I got assigned to it right out of boot camp, but I had to go to a 30-day naval school to learn all the naval rank structure and identify ships and all that. And then the ship was stationed in the Philadelphia Navy Yard. And we went to the ship, and it was 3 or 4 months before we was actually allowed aboard the ship because it was still under construction. And then when we did got underway, we went to the Caribbean for 3 months, or a little over 3 months, on what they call a shakedown cruise, which is where they prove out make sure everything's working right. And we got to stop at a lot of the islands. And anyway, I always brag about it when I was on my way home, my sea bag had 17 different countries and big cities on it, and I was proud of that.
Yeah.
I spent 2 years on that naval guided missile cruiser.
2 straight years, or did you get to?
2 straight years.
Wow.
And we were gone most of the time.
Yeah. That's a long time on a boat.
I never did even have to stand guard duty at the missile site. I wound up being the captain's bodyguard. The captain of the ship's bodyguard was mainly a gopher. And
Yeah.
You go for this and go for that. And
So you had a lot of freedom of movement.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
probably made it a little bit easier.
I had to have a security clearance because you're standing there with all the high-ranked admirals, and you couldn't repeat nothing that you heard. But at the same time, the missiles, when they fired them off, I was up on the bridge, and I got to see that. So most people, all they did was feel the shake.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to see some of the missiles go off, and that's a sight to see. That's great big old Talos missiles. Yep. And I spent 2 years of that, and I was fortunate. I made my way up to E4, and then when I went to got transferred to 2nd Marine Division and checked in and everything, and the captain of the company I was in, he called us all in, talked to us, and then he called me. He said, "I don't see how in the world you can be an E4 corporal. You only been in the Marine Corps 2.5 years." And he said, "You got 3 months to show me that you're a squad leader, or I'm gonna bust you." You know what busting means?
Oh yeah, bust you down.
To kick me back to private. Well, he never called me in. And when I was ready to get out, he actually referred me to E5 sergeant and re-enlist. So I was proud of that.
Yeah. What about you, Mr. Norton? What's the one memory you always think about when you go back to your military days?
I think the most memorable of all my dealings when I was in the Army, it was in 1957. The exact time, though, I can't pin it down. I forgot. Our battle groups, the 503rd and the 504 and the 502nd, we had a competition between each other, and the group commanders was the referee on it, and they chose one battle group, and they chose a group. Whoever came out closest on this competition fake battle that we had to represent a United States unit in the NATO maneuver. And this NATO maneuver in that time was we were to invade Denmark. And they were testing Denmark. Denmark had gotten their military back together and was getting up there, and they didn't want to experience another incident like what occurred in World War II with all the countries over there and that. So they started preparing, and Denmark wanted to know from other officials how well they were being done, if they could prepare. So my group, 503rd, we won our competition there. So our group was stationed to leave Germany, fly over, jump and drop in on Denmark, and conduct a 3-day war with them. And of course, the battle group is I don't know, roughly over 1,000 men. I can't remember, 1,500 what it is. I've lost count of it. But it was a large enough group, though, that we fought a 3-day war with Denmark to find out how well they were prepared for another invasion that might occur, like in World War II. Mm-hmm. And after the battle that we had, we were bivouacked outside of Copenhagen, and we had like a day and a half, almost 2 days there. So we were allowed to go in and get passes and go into Copenhagen and see the town and the sights and everything else. And our NCOs, and I was an NCO at that time, mostly got picked for courtesy patrol. So our men were running around town, checking all the bars and everything else, and we were acting as courtesy patrol to keep them from getting arrested.
Right.
And so my 2 days in Copenhagen was not very free. I had a little free time, but not.
Yeah.
Just the fact that our small unit represented the United States infantry on this thing really made me proud of that, though.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the most memorable ones there, though, because we, for all practical purposes, we had a real war. I mean, we were shooting blanks and that, but they had referees running with us, and if you got shot, well, you was out. I mean, you was finished for that day, though.
Yeah.
But anyway, the whole training exercise was one that I was proud of to represent, though, while we were there, though. And
Gotcha. Bill, you was mentioning the missile destroyer that you was on. What did you call those missiles?
Talos.
Talos. What were their capability? Can you compare? I don't know. You remember when we invaded Iraq and we launched all those Tomahawk missiles off those destroyers.
Well,
I can remember Mike Reisner talking about. He said, "I've never seen ordnance that powerful before. You know, just the way we pounded that city before we went in." What was the comparison?
They didn't have the power that the missiles have today, but the Talos was a long-range missile. I don't remember what the distance was, but it was a long-range missile. It was huge. And on the back of the ship, the whole back of the ship had a turret thing that turned, and those only held 2 missiles.
Zach,
That's all
pick
it,
up on line 1, please.
it was only it only held 2 missiles.
That's how big they were. It only held
Yep,
two.
how
Wow.
big they were. Yep.
Wow. Yeah, when I was in Iraq, I always tell people I was never deployed with the Marine Corps. I got hurt and got sent home before I was deployed. But I went to Iraq with a company that contracted for the DOD, and so I was stationed on a military base just outside, or just inside the Green Zone, Camp Condor. And I had a bomb dog that I would go to one of the checkpoints that came in on the backside of the Green Zone. And we would have to drive from our base over to that checkpoint and search cars coming in the checkpoint with that bomb dog. And the route that we would take took us right by the old Bath Party headquarters. And that was one of the targets that we hit with, I forget how many of those Tomahawks we hit. And literally there was not a rock or a piece of rubble as big as your cell phone what's left of that entire block, that whole city block, where they hit them with those Tomahawk missiles. It was I mean, the devastation. And I can remember, like I said, I can remember watching the Tomahawks hit the targets in Baghdad before the invasion. And like I said, Mike Reisner, who I was working for at the time, he said, I've never seen ordnance like that in my life. And he said, I've seen it all.
Well, the Talos certainly didn't compare to the Tomahawk.
Yeah.
It was in 1960. It was 61, 62. It was the thing.
Wow.
The Navy they were converting 4 regular cruisers come out of World War II to guided missile cruisers. And the USS Little Rock, USS Springfield was the 2 first ones. And the Little Rock was stationed in Philadelphia. And like I say, we went to the Caribbean first, and then come back for Christmas in Philadelphia, and then went to the Mediterranean for 11 months. And we got to see a lot of things over there. And it was basically I don't know what you say, a courtesy cruise. I mean, being nice to all the little countries and stuff. And one stop we made, I was talking about this, at Athens, Greece.
Mm-hmm.
And they was having a big parade and for some event that they were having, and they invited the flag bearers off of the ship, which was, I was the flag bearer, and there was 4 of us, 2 rifles, and carry their flag and our flag. And we got to lead lead that parade in Athens, Greece. And I thought that was something.
That's pretty cool. Did you get to spend any time in Athens, or was it?
Oh yeah, you had free time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful country.
Oh yeah.
I took a little road trip when I worked in Europe, down through the tip of Greece, and it's a beautiful country. That's probably, my son went in the Air Force right out of school, and that was one of the selling points that I talked him into. I don't know if I really talked him into it, but I kind of pushed him towards joining the military. Was the opportunity you get to go to different countries and meet different people and see different cultures, and there's a whole world out there that
talk about being pushed into joining. My dad was in the Navy in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And he come down with some type of illness, and they had to send him back to San Diego, and then he was a barber. And when he come home, of course, when I got out of high school, I didn't know what I was going to do. You couldn't, I think Murray, Ohio, worked there for 2 months, and you made 85 cents an hour. And if you could go over to how many they wanted you to build, you could make a little bit more, but not much.
Mm-hmm.
So a good friend of mine, there was 3 or 4, was Jim Hudson, Ben Sharp, Jimmy Ayers is one who I wound up with. Him and I joined the Marine Corps together, and they told us we could go to boot camp together. Matter of fact, we rode the train from Nashville all the way to Paris Island together,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how we got started. And once we got through boot camp, we never seen each other again.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was several years before we ever got back together.
I went in '89, and a couple of guys from the same class that I graduated with, they went in on that buddy program. I think's what it was. Well, I had already been on Parris Island for a couple of months back then. Basic, I think, was 13 weeks, and I had chow hall duty. And I was coming through the chow hall and I saw both of them sitting across the table from each other. And so I eased my way around there where it didn't look like I was intentionally going over there. And I acted like I was picking up some garbage and stuff. And I said, "Hey boys, how's it going?" And they wouldn't even talk to me. They were so scared to say anything. They wouldn't even look at me. And I mean, 4 months, 5 months before, I just, seen him. We were graduating high school together, and we were all laughing and joking.
Yeah.
And I tried to get them to talk to me, and they wouldn't even talk to me. I said, "What's wrong with you?" And they wouldn't even look at me, let alone because you're so scared when you first get to boot camp. You're afraid to blink.
Yeah.
But yeah, they went in on that buddy program. Well, you fast forward to when after I finished basic and basic warrior training, I got to come home for a few days, and then I had to go back to Camp Geiger for Marine combat training, and then they shipped me out to California where I got trained up on my MOS, and then they sent me back to Camp Lejeune on the East Coast. Well, I hadn't been on the East Coast but maybe a month or 2 months, and I took a bus home from North Carolina and got my pickup truck and drove my truck back so I would have a vehicle to ride around on base. And I just bought that truck from my brother, and the truck wasn't 3 or 4 years old. It was a real pretty black Chevy Silverado pickup. And I got it back on base, and I was so happy I didn't have to ride a bus or walk or bum a ride from somebody. And me and the guy that was rooming with me, his name was John too, and we were trying to get to the chow hall one morning before it closed. And so we were running a little fast, and I rolled up to this intersection, and I looked my way, and I asked the other John that was with me, I said, "John, is it good your way?" And he said it was. Well, I don't think John looked, because I pulled out and I got hit by this car and got nailed, and it spun me around in the road, knocked us crazy. And I get out, and there's a woman sitting in the car that hit us, and she's holding her neck like this. And as I'm walking up to her window to see if she's okay, a guy stopped behind her, and he's getting out. And when he gets out and he puts his cover on, he's a full-bird colonel. And it was his wife that I pulled out in front of. Mm-hmm. And so he comes up and checks on his wife, and he starts chewing me out. Mm-hmm. Well, the MPs, they get there pretty quick. And they worked the accident, and he wrote me a ticket for failure to yield, I think is what I got a ticket for. Mm-hmm. So a few days later, I got to go to court, and I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea what to expect. They told me to show up on this court date. So I walk in, and I'm standing there. I don't know where to go or who to talk to, and I see a guy walk behind this desk, and he said, "Hey, Marine," he said, "you need some help?" And I walked up, and as soon as I get up to him, me and him recognize each other. And he said, "I think I know you." He said, "When did you graduate basic?" Well, we graduated together on Parris Island in the same platoon. Mm-hmm. So he said, "I'm going to give you some advice." He said, it'll save you a butt chewing, and he said, "They'll probably save you a fine." He said, the judge is I think he was a major. He said, when he calls you in, he says, walk up to his door, and he's got a welcome mat in front of his office. He says, make sure you kick your feet on that welcome mat. You wipe off the soles of your feet. And he said, because there's a little bitty sign on the side of the door that says wipe your feet. And he says, most people don't see it. And when they come in and they don't wipe their feet, he chews them out right off the bat. He said, so make sure you wipe your feet off. And he said, and then he says, you walk up and you snap to attention in front of his desk and you tell him that you're there as ordered. And so I did that. And when he called me up, I stopped up there and I wiped off the bottom of my feet and I snapped my heels and walked up there and snapped to attention. And I said, Lance Corporal Myers reporting as ordered, sir. And he looked me over for a minute and he said, at ease. And he said, you're here on a failure to yield ticket, I see. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, this resulted in an accident, right? And I said, it did, sir. And he said, did it tear your vehicle up pretty bad? And I said, yes, sir, it tore it up real bad. And he said, well, it sounds like you've been punished enough. He said, I'm going to let you get out of here with no fine or cost. So I walked out of there and I made a beeline to that guy that was standing that I knew from basic training. I said, man, I appreciate that. He said, no problem. So it helps, to run into some people that
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Military, the military branches are pretty small.
Yeah.
We got about 9 minutes left. Is there anything else that you can? What do you think about the military? Do you know any people in the military now? The military's changed a lot, and I know it's changed a lot. It's changed a lot since I was in, but
it changed drastic, and I'm not really active with any of them, but get to talk to one or some of them sometimes. And the way it is now, I don't know if I'd even like being in the Army now.
yeah.
But it has changed drastic compared to what I was in, and him too, probably.
What do you think, Bill?
Well, it ain't like it used to be.
No.
That's for sure. One thing that really blew my mind. I was across the river from Washington. I was in a Seagull Marine Association, and they had a week-long thing there, and I went to it. And they took us to the Marine base for a show where they did put on marching and all this kind of stuff. I'm trying to think of it. Anyway, what got me is that this was they had changed, and the women was all wearing men's uniforms, including the hat.
Really?
Yep. I thought, what in the world?
You couldn't tell the difference? Could you not tell the difference in them?
Couldn't tell the difference, except the longer hair. They let them wear longer hair, and the men, of course, shave their head. But that's the only way you could tell they was a female.
Yeah.
Yep, they had them wearing male uniforms, and now they do.
Well, my son, like I said, my son went in 2020 during COVID, and he went into the Air Force. Well, I don't know. I don't really want to talk about the standards, but he got to tell me how it was when he went to basic training in the Air Force, and I'm sure the COVID restrictions had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
But I couldn't believe it was basic training or boot camp.
Yeah.
When you hear boot camp, you think it's going to be bad, and it's supposed to be bad because you're getting prepared to maybe even go to war. Mm-hmm. And to hear him talk, it wasn't that bad at all. Mm-hmm. But the worst part about it was that when he graduated, as a parent, and your kid graduates a military basic training, I mean, that's one of the proudest, if not the proudest day ever. And we couldn't even go because of COVID. We had to watch his graduation. Yeah. We had to watch his graduation on the internet.
One thing, when I was in boot camp, you talk about the way they are now. One day I was in Parris Island in the fall of the year, and the fleas is awful.
Me too. Yeah, I remember those sand fleas.
Sand fleas is awful. Well, we're standing in line. I can't say the term, but back to back. Anyway, real close. And this kid in front of me slapped his leg because it's a fight. Well, the DI come up beside of me and started yelling in my ear, and he kicked the side of my leg with his knee, just as hard as he could kick me. Well, the next morning I was in sick bay because I couldn't walk. And of course, the Navy doctor, well, how did this happen? I fell down. I fell down. And I had to go to every day, a week, I went to the sick bay. And they asked me every day how it happened. And I said, I just fell down.
Just fell.
Well, I didn't have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But from then on, that DI never bothered me at all.
Yeah.
And when we graduated, everybody in my platoon went to Camp Lejeune, 2nd Marine Division. Bill went to sea duty, U.S. Navy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I figured that was the reason.
It could have very well been. You had every opportunity to say something, and you chose not to.
And that spot on my leg stayed there for forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember when we'd been out, it was during the last part of basic training, and we'd been out in the field. They called it 10 days of basic warrior training, where you go out in the field and you practice ambush tactics and land navigation, a whole bunch of stuff. Well, it had rained so much that it flooded out our bivouac area, and then it turned to snow, and so they sent us back, and so we were sitting on our foot lockers cleaning our rifles because they were nasty from being out, and we were getting ready to turn them in, final inspection to turn them in. And so we're in our underwear and our t-shirt cleaning our rifles, and we got him. Drill instructor come down and told us to put them together, and he said, "Why don't we practice some drill while we're not doing anything?" So everybody got on the ready line, and we was at attention. I mean, what rifle did you have, the M1 or? Yeah, you had the M1s, right?
I had them.
Yeah, so we had the M16A1s, and it had that big front sight post right under the compensator. Well, you put that front sight post between your thumb and your index finger, and that's where you parked it along your leg when you was standing at attention. And then when you went to port arms, you would slide your hand up and grab the compensator, then snap it up to port arms. Mm-hmm. Well, when he yelled port arms, I went to, and I had put so much gun oil on that rifle, it slipped out of my hand and it flew across the floor. So you can imagine that drill, here he come. And he made a beeline, and I leaned over, and about the time I grabbed it, he chewed me. You said, he was Charlie horsing me, and I think here come the other, because we had 3, and I think the senior drill instructor finally come down there and got them off of me, but they were ready to kill me right there for dropping that rifle. That was one of the butt chewings that I got on Parris Island. One of the worst ones that I saw was during firearms week. One of the Marines left his rifle on his. He was so scared, he got sidetracked or something. We locked him to the side of our bunk, and he left it there and showed up at the range without his rifle. And that was probably the worst butt chewing that I ever seen. A lot of little things that when you're a kid. When I was a kid, I was 17 when I joined. My mom had to sign the paperwork for me to join. I went right after I turned 18, but I'd never been cussed at. I'd never been yelled at. I'd never been kicked around and pushed. And that was all new to me. So I mean, it was a shocker, but I wouldn't take anything for the experience.
When I was on sea duty, there was only 38 Marines on board and 700 sailors.
Yeah.
So it was kind of one-sided.
Yeah, I bet it was.
We had this one guy on there. He was from Pennsylvania, and he had started training for silent drill, and he had a silent drill team that could do silent drill for 20 minutes. And every time we went to a big city or something, and they found out, they'd get invited to a parade or something like that. And I was the flag. I was the had the flag. There's four of us, and of course, we didn't have to do all that drilling, but we was there, in front of the thing. But they were good at it. They were real good at it.
I got to see the silent drill team in California when I was out there for a while. It's pretty impressive.
And this was a little old unit on a Navy ship. There wasn't but 38 of us on there,
I think that's something.
and it had a real good silent drill team.
Well, I can't thank y'all enough for coming over. We're about out of time. It was an honor to sit here and talk to y'all and tell a few war stories. I could sit around and do this stuff for a couple hours. I just absolutely love it. But thanks again for coming, and we'll see each other tomorrow, right? At the lunch. All right, thank y'all.
Yeah.